Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore, and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today, I'm super excited because I have two amazing guests for you. So, my guests today, we have the wonderful Ashley Woodfolk and Lexi Underwood, authors of the new book, Louder Than Words. A little bit about Ashley. Ashley loved reading and writing for as long as she can remember. She graduated from Rutgers University and worked in children's books, publishing for a decade, and now she's an author. Her books include The Beauty That Remains, When You Were Everything, and Blackout and Flyy Girls Series. Lexi is an actress, singer, filmmaker, and changemaker. She is best known for her roles in Little Fires Everywhere That, so I can't read my own writing, Everywhere That, First Lady, and SNEAKERELLA. In 2008, she founded her first production company, The Ultimate Dreamer Productions, and made her directorial debut with the voices of Gen Z. So a very warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Ashley Woodfolk and Lexi Underwood. How are you guys?
We're good.
Thank you so much for having us.
And that was Lexi's production company was started in 2018.
Yes.
What did I say?
Yeah, I was like, how old were you?
What did I say? What year?
Elementary school.
What year did I say?
2008.
Okay. You know what? It's really bad because my printer broke this morning and I didn't realize how bad my writing is. So I've literally been trying to so I wrote this morning and my writing is bloody bad. So
You're all good.
I was just giggling when you said 2008 because I was like, Lexi, were you like, yeah, I was not.
Yeah.
Like, how old were you?
Not a bad time to be able to even start a company.
Yeah, so there's a couple of notes for me. One is to get my 2018, not 2008, and a very close second pulled by another printer tomorrow. But in England, I don't know whether it's the same in the States, but in England, we have this thing where we always say that doctors have really bad handwriting. Do you have the same thing in the States?
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm not a doctor, but my handwriting is reasonably similar. Okay, so now we'll get to the good stuff. So when I came across you guys and the wonderful work that you're doing, I was intrigued by how you guys came together for this project. Did you know each other before? And clearly, okay, I'll let you answer that. I don't know who wants to go first, whether Ashley maybe.
Sure, I can go. So we met because of this book, actually. Lexi was doing some wonderful work with Reese Witherspoon's book club, Reese's book club. And because of a novel called You Should See Me in a Crown that she did an event for, that novel's by Leah Johnson, she met Leah's editor, Maya Marlette. And after meeting her editor, they just had a conversation about how much Lexi loved books and how she'd always wanted to write her own novel. And Lexi, because she is an idea machine, she already had an idea for a book. Sorry, our lights keep going. Okay. They're motion.
I could see. I still got you.
But yeah, so she had a conversation with Maya about her book idea, and then they together decided that it would be cool to collaborate with a more established author, since this was Lexi's first novel. And because of that, they had spoken to a couple of different authors, and I was the one that just fit the project the best. And so that was kind of how we met and how we came together.
Okay. So Lexi, you guys, the lady had an initial idea And was the idea louder than words, or was that forming in the background?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as you know, when Ashley and I came together and as we continue to write, a lot of the things that we were talking about did change, but the same concept of Jordyn Jones, you know, and just a girl that's having kind of like a redemption story, a redemption arc was the premise idea that we came up with. Knew that I wanted it set in middle school slash high school, just a YA book for my peers and for the younger generation, especially young kids that are entering high school right now actively, just kind of almost like as a guidebook. And like Ashley said, you know, when we met, we just immediately clicked and everything aligned. And so from then on, it was really easy to bounce ideas off of one another. Yeah, it was a great process.
Okay. So I would say one of my questions was going to be, and I think you kind of answered it, but what's that process like trying to, I guess, collaborate on a book? I guess from your perspective, Ashley, I know that you are an author, so you create, well, I'm guessing that most of your creations, your books, you've done as a solo author.
So I actually have done other collaborative stories before. I do have, I mean, obviously the majority of my novels I wrote alone, but writing can be such a lonely process that I actually really enjoy collaborating with other writers. So I did a book called Blackout and a book called Whiteout with a group of 5 other authors. And they're sort of like interconnected short stories in that come together to make a novel. And then I also am currently in the process of writing a novel with another friend of mine, so who's also a writer. So I have done the collaborative thing before, and it is something that I find to be really interesting and really fun. And this project was even more unique because I was coming into it sort of to just help bring the story to life. The story was already established, and I was just throwing my 2 cents in and helping to like form the characters and bring them to life. So yeah, like I've done both, and honestly, the collaboration part of it is a little easier.
Okay.
Because you're not coming up with everything on your own, you're not working alone. So I really enjoy the collaborative process.
Okay. And my last question on the collaboration bit, this is just pure intrigue. So when you collaborate, I'm guessing you're not together. So well, I'm making an assumption that physically you're not together. So is it different documents that you're able to in the cloud that we're able to just kind of like you put your work in and then you can edit and so forth?
Yeah, so we would go back and forth. Originally, when it came to like the outline at the very start, we had like a shared Google Doc, and so we would
Yeah.
add and update ideas there. But then we would also then kind of go off and have like our own like separate respective I guess like documents,
Yeah.
where she would write and then I would write, and then we would put it in one document. And so that was just kind of like our main guide. I would say really for notes, because we were still like writing on separate times, but then we would come together and do like a Zoom meeting or FaceTime, and then like kind of leave notes, you know, for
each
one
other.
another
Yeah.
when we read it. And but like because she lives in New York and I live in LA. So like East Coast and West Coast timing as well, like, you know, just sending text messages throughout the time. But there was nothing where it ever felt like it was like challenging. And then I think especially because we both have similar writing styles, I would say, and just also like just a similar idea of how we wanted the story to be told. We just kind of trusted one another and let each other do their thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I also think our editor did like a really great job of like sort of helming the ship
Yeah.
a little bit and facilitating those conversations and making sure that everything came together cohesively in a way that made sure that the story flowed really well. So yeah.
Okay, amazing. Wonderful. So louder than words. I like the title, but I was intrigued how you came up with the title. What does the title mean to you guys?
Yeah, there's a scene pretty early on in the novel where Jordyn is talking about how people at school sort of have their own idea about who she is. And her mom says to her, well, it doesn't matter what people say, they can say whatever they want, but you have to make sure that your actions speak louder than whatever they're saying. And so that was kind of where we got the idea for the title. I feel like we had like tossed around a bunch of other titles, but nothing really fit as well as Louder Than Words, which actually was our editor's suggestion. And it was just like perfect fit. We immediately were like, yes, like that's it.
Yeah. So that totally makes sense. And as you were giving your explanation, I can think of my mum agreeing and actually saying yes, louder than words.
Yes.
Giving me advice as a youngster when I was at school. So you've got the lead character, Jordyn, and could you guys independently both identify with her? Maybe Lexi, maybe you want to answer that one.
Yeah, I definitely identify with Jordyn. When I first started writing this, I was really fresh out of high school. So I was ending, and I will say that my high school experience looked a little different because I was homeschooled, but I definitely could relate to still just being an overachiever, being a people pleaser, and also just a bit too hard on yourself, especially when you mess up and make mistakes. It's very easy to internalize everything, especially the outside noise. And I think that when you first meet this young girl, like you see her as someone who has fallen down quite a few times. She's definitely made mistakes. She's not perfect, but she is striving for perfection, and she views Edgewood High just as a chance to be able to kind of like start over. And I've 100% have been there, where I've tried to reinvent myself or, you know, just be perfect, and perfection doesn't exist. And I think that especially for young kids that are in high school. I love the fact that this book comes out in the summer right before kids go back to school, because it really is kind of, I don't know, it's a great it's a great I guess
a great moment.
a great moment, you know, for kids to see that also, like going into it, like you don't have to be perfect, you don't have to have everything all figured out, you don't have to be the perfect student, perfect friend, perfect person, but being a good person, that is what's important. Perfect versus good. And I think that, you know, I kind of wish that I would have had that when I was in middle school / high school. Because it would have showed me that, you know, who I am, just, you know, being me is enough, and that I don't have to go out of my way to change anything, but also I need to hold myself accountable and show up in the areas where, you know, I feel like I'm not necessarily showing up as my full self. And so so I hope that that's what young readers especially take away from it. But I just wanted to write something for me and my peers.
Yeah. I don't know what you guys think. I guess researching this, I was just thinking about when I was at school, which was unfortunately many years ago now. I was just comparing. I was thinking it must be much harder to be a school teenager now because of the pressure, social media. I know that there's a podcast involved in this, and you can't really escape. There's no escapism. And also there's the pressure of smartphones where people have access to you from a digital footprint perspective. Do you guys have any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the really unique things about this novel is the fact that, you know, people from two different generations were writing it. So I'm a millennial, and I was sort of feel like the beginning of that. It's okay. Beginning of that, the era of technology and that being involved in, you know, your life from a very young age. And then Lexi is Gen Z, so she is very familiar with what it's like to grow up with that from the very beginning. And so I think that definitely played a role in what we wanted to include in the novel. And I think that we both understand sort of the ways that social media can harm, and then also the ways that it can help. Like you can find community in social media. You can find people who are very like-minded and use social media for activism, right? But then on the other hand, it can be very harmful. You can bully people or be bullied. You can, you know, spread rumors. And so yeah, that was definitely a lot of the conversations that we had as we were writing the novel about how to incorporate that in a way that felt real.
Yeah. And that's actually quite powerful when you kind of flip the script and you use social media. I know
Mhm.
Jordyn used it as a form of activism where she became more powerful and she was able to grow and develop. And I'm just thinking of myself as a youngster, that type of age. You don't necessarily think that way. You kind of invariably we get controlled by the majority. And books like this really give us that spark, that energy, that real spark that we can actually, really be ourselves. Was that something that was you really wanted to drive through in the book?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a part of Gen Z, and I feel like, we hear it a lot, but just like I feel like Gen Z is just so we're so driven. And I think that was talking about social media and art specifically when it comes to activism, there is just so much now where Gen Zers, and also just, from other different generations as well, I think that's the power of social media. But you can no longer say that you didn't know when it comes to certain things. You are quite literally, I feel like our generation specifically is really desensitized from a lot of the violence that happens in this world, because we're actively putting it out there. We're actively seeing it. And while it can be triggering sometimes, I think that it is really important, and it's a true testament that now, like, you have no other choice but to use your voice, whether it's when you are, sitting with your peers, or whether it's you're on social media or you're writing a book. Like, I think that it's important to speak up about the things that you are passionate about. And I think that this generation, more than ever, definitely millennials got the conversation started, but it's Gen Zers who's really going out and taking action. And I think that that also goes along with, actions speak louder than words. You can talk about it, but you also have to be about it, and you also have to show up, whether that's on social media or through art or it's in person. And so I'm really glad that, we were able to come to like a conclusion of how we wanted to convey it, because we knew that we wanted art and activism to be a part of the story, just didn't necessarily know how. And so
Yeah.
I feel like the way in which we've done it ties everything in, whether it's visual arts or it's also just the power of social media, then a picture of it going viral. And so yeah, there's just so many different ways that you can be speaking up and using your voice now, and just encouraging other Gen Zers and other different generations to show up.
Yeah. I think I love art and activism as well. I think that that's an amazing combination. And I think it's a combination, not being Gen Z, but I think that's a combination I can imagine Gen Z getting really engaged with, because you guys are creative, so you guys would know this better than me, but there are many different forms of art, and to be able to use activism and whatever art is, our art of choice, to actually do something powerful. And to your point, Lexi, to really be about whatever our agenda is, we really can use that as a creative outlet. Was that something that you clearly that is something that you wanted to push? But I guess from your perspective, Ashley, is that something that you're hoping that when people start, or youngsters start reading this book, they really will buy into that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think any creative person, you can't help but sort of put your beliefs and the way that you feel about certain issues are going to come through in your art, no matter what you do. So if you're a writer, it's going to come out in the stories that you write. If you're a musician, it's going to come out in your songs. If you're an actor, it's going to come out in the roles that you select, right? And I think that just happens really organically. But I also think you can be very purposeful in what you write or what you produce as well as an artist. So that was definitely something that I thought about as we were working on this, that I wanted to make sure that our beliefs were represented in the story. And that in addition to, Jordyn sort of standing up against this kind of bullying that was happening via the podcast, we also have moments in there where there are other issues that are happening in the world that are just brought up very organically. So that was definitely a part of the process. I think it happens when you're creating something anyway, I think you can't help but put a little bit of yourself and a little bit of your belief system into anything that you make as an artistic or creative person. But I also think you can, on the other side of things, like make very purposeful choices about how what you're saying and how different things are being represented in your work.
This is a question, and I'm going to ask both of you the same question because I'm interested to get a steer on what you both think about it. But do you think for Gen Z, it's more complicated being a teenager than maybe what it was years ago, just because of everything that's going on with technology, the challenges, we've had COVID, we've got different wars, we've got, Black Lives Matters. There's so much going on and you can't really escape it. So I'm gonna go with Lexi first.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are pros and cons to being a part of Gen Z and growing up in this generation. Pros specifically, I would say is just there is so much more freedom to be able to express yourself now. I think that, kids are really given the space, especially whether you're, minorities, young people are really giving the space to figure themselves out and to not always be pigeonholed. Not that that wasn't, the case in other generations, but I think now more than ever, there are just certain things that are really normalized that it's not, you don't think twice about it. And so for us, even hearing older generations talk and sometimes be a little judgmental, it's like, whoa, like this is like, but this is a thing. Like this is how our world looks like. When we go on social media, this is what we see. So we're just exposed to a lot more, which also makes other young people feel seen and heard. But there are a lot of cons to growing up as a Gen Zer. I think that specifically it really is social media and it's the trends. Trends have always been around, since, just I feel like media has been a thing, but tools like TikTok and like Instagram Reels or Twitter, it sometimes can feel a little challenging and overwhelming to keep up with so many different things because there's always a new thing out there. And I feel like a lot of my peers, we tend to eternalize it sometimes and feel as though we're not doing enough. Or if we don't dress like this, or if we don't follow this trend, then we're not doing this right. But I think that also just for Gen Zers, it's so important to know that like who you are as your authentic self is enough. And there's just not a lot of content out there, sadly. Even the self-care content still in some way, shape, or form does not seem quite attainable. And so I just feel like there's not a lot of people that are using social media as a tool to just be real, which is why it's so challenging right now. Hopefully, I don't know if it'll ever happen, but like hopefully everybody on social media platforms just say, hey, like this is what our real life looks like outside of the facade that we want to create. And I think that that would help a lot more people. But I love being a Gen Zer. I wouldn't have it any other way. But it's definitely tricky. It's challenging to navigate.
Something I feel like we've been talking about a lot today in all these interviews is the fact that Gen Z is so willing to stand up and speak out. And I feel like I'm only now realizing that social media probably plays a big role in that just because, and the internet in general, because you're not able to sort of turn away from things the way that older generations could, or claim ignorance, right? Because when a lot of other things were happening in the past, people legitimately didn't know, or people could pretend that they didn't know, or it wasn't just like so in your face. So it was easier to just go about your life and not really think about what else is happening in the world or what is happening to people who aren't, in your immediate circle. But I think the reason why Gen Z is so active and so loud and so passionate is because they see everything. It's impossible to look away, and they're choosing not to. They're making the choice to stand up and say, I think this is wrong, and there are things that we can do about it. And you shouldn't look away. And so I really admire Gen Z for doing that. But to answer your question, like, I agree with Lexi that there are two sides to the same coin because comparison is so stressful. And I think that that's what social media also does. It forces forces, because everything is so in your face, you're always comparing yourself to someone else. And then I think there is the opportunity to create community, right? To find like-minded people. And so there's that, that positive too. So yeah, I think in a lot of ways it is harder, but I also think that every generation has its difficulties. And this just happens to be what it is for Gen Z.
Exactly. So in years to come, the next generation, their challenges. Yeah.
Like my kids. Yeah.
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 It
I'm
all
stressed.
changes.
Gonna be like,
I'm stressed
oh my
already.
gosh.
So you guys, so one thing I've noticed with the love of what you guys do, and I think it's prevalent in the book as well, is this ability to reframe or to repurpose those difficult situations which invariably crop up in life. There's always a different side of the coin, a positive side of the coin, something that we can do that can be incredibly positive and powerful. You guys are creative, so you're always having to think on your toes and come up with different things, but not a lot of us, not everybody, sorry, has that ability. So the ability to reframe and repurpose, is that an important thing for you guys?
Yeah. I don't know. Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely important for us. I think that, at the end of the day, like we just wanted to tell an impactful story that, would really stay with people. I always love to say, just, as an actor on the film side, I love to watch a film that I can't stop talking about for the next 2 weeks. And I feel like this book is that for me as well. Like I just love to be a part of impactful projects that really help people feel seen or heard or represented and gets those dialogues talking. And I think that this book specifically, it also helps other generations come together because you have, millennial and Gen X that can come back to this book and can, reminisce on their
Remember what it was
yeah.
like.
Yeah.
You also have people that are fresh out of high school, like me, college students that are still kind of trying to figure things out because also college in your 20s are transformative years as well. And so, and then this is also for, younger kids that are getting ready to embark on that journey. And I think we just wanted to write something that brings everyone together, but specifically, I feel like I keep using the word guidebook, but it almost kind of feels like that. While there's so many different things, different themes that are happening in the book, it also just kind of feels like, at least for me, it gives people hope, like especially younger kids that are about to embark on this new journey. It gives them hope that, regardless of what your circumstances are right now, like there's always a brighter side on the end. You just have to continue to persevere and push through so that you can see it, no matter how hard it is. But that's kind of just the story that we wanted to tell, and I feel like it does that pretty well.
Yeah, no, I think it gives a powerful perspective as well, a different perspective for life, because I think youngsters, we invariably, I'm thinking about when I was a teenager many years ago, that you kind of go with the pack, even when intuitively doesn't feel right, but you kind of do it. And you go through school and you've done that and it never feels right. And you don't think if somebody shifts from that, you kind of think they're, well, sometimes you might admire them, but you might not ever say that. But I think this book really gives them that glow, gives them that shine. Actually, yeah, it's you just go be that person you want to be, and then you're going to encourage more people. What I was going to ask you guys is, do you plan to visit schools and colleges? And maybe Ashley, you want to go with this one?
Yeah, we actually have school visits lined up already. So we'll have a bunch of school visits this week, and we'll see when school is back in session in the fall. There might be more opportunity for school visits. But yeah, that's definitely something that we want to do. We want to talk to students and get their perspective and see if we hit the nail on the head, when it comes to telling a story like this one, and also just sort of talk about, I think a theme that we haven't really touched on is like the harmfulness that can come from being a bystander. And that's something that we do talk about in the novel. And I would love to speak to actual teens about how that feels and like what it's like to sort of make a different choice. Because I think we've all, even people who, you know, regularly sort of stand up and stand out, they've also had their moments when they were a bystander, when something they didn't like was happening, you know, just because sometimes it's easier to be quiet. So I think that those are going to be interesting conversations to have with students during our school visits. And I hope we do get to visit more schools in the fall.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking parents as well, because if I'm not a parent, but if I was a parent, I would want my kids to have this book. I'd want them to read this book. I'd want them, because you want them to be them. I don't want my kids, or I've got nieces and nephews, and I want them to be them. And I think that this type of transparency that the book, not just transparency, but the kind of independence of thought, creativity that you guys are providing with the Jordyn character and the setup of the book is really giving people that autonomy to be themselves. I don't know what you think on that. Maybe Lexi, you want to go with this one?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that so far with the feedback that we've been receiving, especially from people that are either parents or their uncles, aunts, or even older siblings, like, is that, you know, a lot of people want their younger family members to read this. And I definitely, I'm still kind of a kid, but you know, I'm like, my baby cousins, I'm like, read this, please.
Yeah,
Cousins that are going into middle school, so I'm like, read this, because I just think that I think this is needed. I really think this is needed. And I must say, like, this is kind of our first time like doing this, so we're like really hearing the feedback today, and so it just warms my heart that that's been like a main thing that we hear, is that this is also like parent approved or guardian approved. Because people need this, young kids need this, and if the parents are signing off on it, then I feel like we've really done our job. And we have a solid story for 12 and up.
Yeah, I think something that I worry about a lot, because most of my novels are, well, all of my novels are for teens or kids. I think I worry a lot about coming off as preachy or coming off as sounding like a parent or sounding like a teacher or something like that. And I think the key to writing a novel that actually does hit home in a way that can be impactful to kids and teens' behavior is to not talk down to them, is to really tell a story that treats kids and teens with dignity. And that is what I'm always trying to do. And so I think when you do that, you're able to sort of hit both targets, right? You can write a story that kids and teens can enjoy and read and like, which I truly hope that we've done. But then you also will have parents and teachers who are like, yes, like you wrote an entertaining story for kids, but you also are providing like valuable life lessons in this story. And so yeah, starting to get that feedback from parents and teachers and reviewers and stuff has been awesome. But I'll be honest, like I care more about what the kids think. And so I'm excited to hear more from kid readers or teen readers.
Your kids are honest, and
yes,
they
are honest, and this book is for them, you know. It's not for their parents, it's for them. So
I feel as somebody who just
graduated,
that's why I'm like, okay, yay the parents, because I'm like, you know, I'm right in that pocket. So I think
and I guess from the parents' perspective, I was just thinking that, you know, I love the premise of the book, and I'm just thinking as an adult that, and what the book is giving children, that ability to be autonomous and to be themselves. I just, from a parent's perspective, I want my kids to have that, because with Instagram and TikTok and and these platforms. I'm not against these platforms, but I'm against some of the curation which only goes one way, which is artificial. It's not really, it's pure curation, and that
Mhm.
doesn't really lead a lot of children in a direction that they intuitively really want to go, but they don't really know how to maybe stop that kind of momentum which has taken them in that direction. So I think your book, is a wonderful tool to mitigate that. So wrapping up, I know that your time's elapsing. So I just wanted to ask about, are there any further plans to do a continuation of this, to develop the character? Maybe
You this, maybe.
maybe.
Open.
Yeah.
I'm always
Yeah.
open.
Okay.
I feel like right now there are no official plans for like a sequel or anything like that. But we're always open to possibilities. I
Yeah.
feel like we both had a great time writing this novel.
I would love to, maybe do a sequel.
Yeah.
I think right now our main focus after getting the book out in the world is figuring out how we can make it more than just a book. So if
Yeah.
anything, I would tell you to stay tuned on. It's that.
Yeah, you know what? I like that idea. I won't delve too deeply into that, but I like the idea of it being more than a book. Because I actually, I love that idea.
Yeah.
Doing something kind of like visual. We've got characters where people can engage with them. Maybe
Yeah.
they can engage with them, some of these things online and stuff. But yeah, I think that has huge potential.
That's our hope. Fingers crossed.
I've got my fingers crossed as well. So the book is out in the States.
Yes.
Tomorrow.
I'm in the UK. What about the UK?
That's a great question.
Is it?
Is
What
it
about
out?
your UK family?
Is it out in
What
the
about your
UK?
cousins?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
We'll have
How can I get this to my niece and nephews?
Right, I know.
We'll have to
We'll
let
let
you
you know.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know.
Hopefully it was definitely World English, but I don't know.
Eventually, it always comes eventually anyway. We get things,
Yeah.
we get sort of all the Hollywood blockbusters secondhand anyway. So,
We'll find out for you.
We're used to it, but definitely let's get this over here as well because we need this. Our kids need your book, and we need those insights, and we want them to lean into who they really are. Okay, so last question is this is a recurring question. So on the podcast, at the end of every episode, I ask each guest if they could invite three inspirational people for dinner, alive or past, who would they invite? And you've got three people, and maybe I can ask you, Ashley first, your first person, and then Lexi yours, and then we go second and third.
Okay.
I would say Malala, Michelle Obama, and my granny who passed a couple years ago. Just because I feel like what all those women have in common is just like incredible perseverance. Like they all were change makers. They all are people that I wish I could talk to in person. For my grandmother, of course, this is like talk to her in person again. But I just feel like that would be a dinner or a meeting that would be really impactful on me and really inspirational for me in order to like move forward. I would love to just pick their brains about, I mean, I read Becoming, but I would love to pick Michelle Obama's brain about, so many other things. With Malala, she's just had like such an incredible life. And I feel like she continues to just do the unexpected. And so I would love to speak with her and just someone who had like such an international impact. And then my granny, just because I love my granny so much and I miss her. So yeah.
Perfect three.
I would say Bell Hooks, Aaliyah,
Aaliyah,
and
that's a good one.
And it's between Assata Shakur or Michelle Obama as well. I just love bell hooks. I love all of her work, and just the way that she used to think, her everything about bell hooks. Like, she is one of my favorite artists of all time. And so I would just love to pick her brain even more, learn more about her writing process, and learn more about just, the things that she writes about, because All About Love is like my all-time favorite book. Aaliyah is my number one inspiration when it comes to just what I do on a daily basis. I think that she was just so effortless in every sense of the word, especially for her to be so young. She was, around my age when she passed. And so she created such an impact with just, now that I'm, almost that age, I'm like, whoa, that's not a lot of time at all. And so for her to have been so young, but to have just been like, kind of changing the game and honestly inspiring everyone, including older people that were looking to her for the next thing. Like, she was just that girl in every sense of the word. And then Assata Shakur or Michelle Obama, both women just being absolutely incredible yet again. Assata Shakur is just, I look to her when it comes to activism and just the way in which I show up with the things that I'm passionate about. Also when it comes to writing as well, but specifically activism. And I would just love to pick her brain even more. And Michelle Obama is just incredible. She's Michelle Obama.
She's Michelle Obama.
What else do you need to know? Yeah, so it's definitely between those two, but there's four.
Okay.
Four.
Because I like them so much, you can have both.
Thank you.
Amazing. And where can people get the book? I'm going to grab links from your team and we'll put those in the show notes. Will it be Amazon?
Yeah, it's available wherever books are sold. In the US. We're not sure about the UK right now.
But we've got US.
But yes, Amazon. It is definitely available on Amazon.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Ashley, Lexi, amazing. Love what you're doing. Congratulations on your collaboration, your wonderful book, wonderful character. And I'm just excited about all the young lives you're going to change. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This is a lovely interview.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode of My Perfect Failure. Always looking to grow the show. So please do tell us what you like and equally what you don't like. You can find me at Paul at myperfectfailure.com, or you can find me via the feedback page on the website. So take care for now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.